concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
Hello, everybody. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. How's everybody doing in the chat? Hello, chat. I see you there. Albuquerque. Albuquerque is way easier to say than it is to type. Hello, Albuquerque. Hello, Italy. Hello, Norway. Go to sleep. What do you guys... Yesterday was your stream. The European stream is on Sunday. The American stream is on Monday. Pardon my bald eagle. Invisible Molene's DJ got the Bardwell flight controller and ESC. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Adelaide. Adelaide, or as they say in Adelaide, Adelaide. How was that? Was that... Glenny FPV, tell me how my accent was. I apologize. I don't know what I have. I have a little bit of a scratchy throat, frog in my throat. So if I clear my throat a lot today... For those of you who are wondering, the perennial question, what am I drinking? This is Arnold Palmer. Tonight, it's the evening, a little bit. Try this. Try this if you're a fan of adult beverages. Half lemonade, half sweet tea, like one shot of bourbon in a liter. Trust me, you're going to like it. Okay, so this is my Q&A live stream. It's Monday night. I do these at Sunday at 1, Monday at 8. And in case you're new here, any first timers? No, not vodka. Trust me, the bourbon really suits the tea. That's not what we're here for. We're not really here to talk about liquor. Parents, kids. Any first timers here in the chat? I'm watching Newsier. I see there. Blade Johnson, Bama. I lived in Georgia. Alabama has always been my... You know what? I'm going to stop there. Alabama's great. Stars fell on Alabama. In case you're new here, here's what we got. This is my screen. I got the chat right here. Rickster FPV says, who is JB? Rickster, I know who you are. You damn well know who I am. This is the chat, and I'm going to be taking your questions. First time, Mel Locklear. Hello, Mel. Steve Maslich, this is not your first time. Stop trying to pretend. You're marked as a moderator, Steve. You're marked as a moderator. So here's the chat. I'm going to be taking questions in the chat. I'm going to answer as many of these questions as I can. But as you guys know, there's way too many questions for me to answer them all, especially given how I do go on. So if you want to have your question called out into a separate window, there's two things you can do. One of them is you can hit this $sign right here. That's a super chat button. When you hit that button, you throw a couple bucks and your question gets pulled out into the super chat window down here. It's currently empty. No super chats yet. And I will make absolutely sure, like 99% sure. Hey, Dave Lockwood. Thank you, sir. Say hi to Remy, please. Okay, for $2. Hello, Remy. The other thing you can do is if you're a patron, you get access to my Discord server. And there's a channel on my Discord server. This is not this is the troubleshooting channel. Hold on. Where's the live stream channel? Live stream chat. There we go. This is a live stream chat. And I always keep an eye on that. And I always like to start the stream with a little bit of like news of the day. I don't actually have any like news from the world of FPV. One big piece of news that I talked about yesterday that bears repeating is that FreeSky has backed away from their plans to completely get rid of the D16, the ACCST protocol, and they've announced that they will be releasing a firmware to allow the like the X9 Lite radio, which used to only support the new access, it will be able to support D16. That's a big enough piece of news that I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to be reviewing the X9 radios soon, and that'll definitely affect the review. But the other thing I have to talk about, John B., do I look like I've been working out? No, sir, I haven't. It's just a good camera angle. Thanks, John. Thank you, though, John. The other thing I have to mention is at the end of yesterday's stream, it was literally right as I was answering the last question and about to sign off, literally all of the East Coast, Google, just completely took a dump. So my live stream stopped. I wasn't actually able to get into the live stream to shut it down. And the normal things that Google does to prevent bots from like spamming spam links and porn links. In case you don't know this, right now there are bots trying to get into this live stream and fill the live stream up with links to spam and viruses and porn. And Google is stopping them. That's why you have no idea that that's happening. But yesterday, if you came to my live stream about 2 hours and 5 minutes in, it was just a freeze frame of me and a chat window full of really awful things. So if that happened, sorry, I had no control over that. That was just Google. Like literally the whole East Coast, all of Google went down. So that's why that happened. So, but what I want to do is I want to get into today's topic. And in case you actually took a second to read the headline, today is not just any old Q&A, because today I have with me a guest. I have Randy Rubinstein from SRA Solder. Randy, you want to go ahead and say hello?
Hi, Josh. Hi, everyone out there. We're here to talk about tinning tips and tip maintenance.
That's right. Now, Randy and I, in case you don't know, I should have put a link to this down in the video description. Let me pull the links up, Randy. I'll do it at the end. Randy and I have already done 2 interviews about soldering. SRA Solder makes, well, as the name suggests, they make soldering iron and soldering accessories and stuff. And Randy and I have done 2 amazing interviews, about 45 minutes each. They're on my channel. And they're just I think they're some of the best content on my channel. So thank you for that, Randy.
You're welcome.
And so when I had the chance to talk to you again, I was like, yes. And do you want to do it on a live stream? So also, I know is this your first live stream?
This is my first live stream.
Okay. We'll try to be gentle. You came to me and said, we want to talk about tip maintenance. And I'm so excited to talk about soldering iron tip maintenance because I think this is a topic that a lot of people overlook. And I think we could easily spend a half hour talking about it. So we have let me have some ideas for stuff. I guess the first question I want to throw to you, Randy, is, and by the way, we'll also be taking questions from the chat, just like always. We're just going to be talking. I think, Randy, we're probably going to go for about a half hour, 45 minutes, maybe a little longer. And then for everybody in the chat who wants to just ask me a question about your flight controller, that'll be a little later in the stream. The first question I think I would say is, what do you think, Randy, is the biggest mistake, the most common mistake people make that causes damage to their soldering iron tip?
Well, there's several things that can cause damage. The biggest thing is oxidation on the tip. And oxidation can be caused by leaving your tip, running your soldering iron too hot. If you're, say, maxing it out at 800 Fahrenheit, you're running it too hot. So just the generation of heat creates oxidation, and oxidation will slow down the adhesion or the heat transfer between the tip and the solder. So your solder won't be melting because of the high level of oxidation that could be on your tip. So what can cause that is temperature, use of very fine soldering wire because it doesn't have enough flux in it. That can cause oxidation. Lack of flux can cause oxidation. If you use a solder with an acid core, that can definitely ruin your tip pretty quickly. Using a water-soluble flux can also ruin your tip because that's more aggressive, and leaving it on your tip can eat away at the tip.
So one of the questions I see people talking about in the chat is the way that they are cleaning their tip. And people are talking about the difference between wet sponge cleaning versus brass cleaning. Is one of those, cleaning the tip removes the oxidation, removes the old solder. Is one of those ways of cleaning it better or worse than the other?
Yeah, the brass coil is 10x better than a sponge. The brass coil will, like you said, will remove the oxidation, and it will remove the excess solder. So later toward the end of the live stream, Josh will be playing a video that we're producing, which shows you how to properly tin your tip and repair a tip that has some oxidation on it. So we'll see that later on. But there's probably half a dozen brands of the brass coils out there. You don't want to use steel wool. You don't want to use a Brillo pad with soap in it. Steel wool is too aggressive. So you really want to use a brass coil is the best way to do it.
So what is wrong with the wet sponge? And if the wet sponge is bad, why is it there?
Well, the wet sponge has been around forever, and people use it. And it's not that it's terrible, but you're putting water on the tip. You don't know how clean the water was. It could have minerals on it from your tap water. Could be acidic. Who knows? And that can contaminate your tip. So. I prefer not to use that, and I just use brass coils for all my tip cleaning. Yep.
Interesting. I've heard some people suggest that the thermal shock of the water, the tip boils the water, but it also cools the tip, and that the thermal shock can be bad for the tip. Any truth to that?
Yeah, that can affect it a little bit, but not as much as leaving the iron on and leaving your tip hot for, say, a half hour when you're in between tasks. Yeah. So if you're going to be doing a couple solder joints, now you got some assembly work to do and you're doing some other solder in 20 minutes, a half hour, shut your iron off, and that will prevent oxidation on the tip, which is what will kill a tip.
A license to drive in the chat says, to get excess solder off my tip, I use a method that's probably frowned upon by professionals. I smack the iron against a surface to throw the solder off. Any thoughts about that, Randy?
Besides damaging your iron and your tip, buy a brass coil. They're much cheaper.
You get solder spattered everywhere too.
Right.
Yeah, probably not the best idea. You talked about leaving the iron on. I'll tell you, I'm gonna just name names. Okay, I was at X-Hover. X-Hover is a company. One of the things they do is they make pre-built quadcopters. Randy, everybody in the chat knows X-Hover. And when we were there, they had their workstations. They had they were Hacko 888s, 888D, very good soldering iron.
Good iron, yep.
They were set to max temp, and they just left them on all day. When they were done, they set it down in the stand, didn't turn it off, didn't turn it down. When they needed it, they picked it up. And I thought, that can't be good. And then I thought, I don't know. That's what they do. I guess it works for them. I was so confused by this.
Yeah, that's not good for your iron, especially being at max temperature, not tinning it. But they must be making a lot of money by
Maybe they can afford to replace the
They can afford to
tips.
replace the tip once a week.
There you go. So let's talk about that. We're talking about how if you don't do the right thing, you will damage your tip. But there's a lot of people out there who have no idea. I looked at one of my old videos. Never do this, by the way. And I was saying in the video, if your tip is oxidized, that's bad. You want a nice shiny tip. And I'm looking at my tip in the video, and I'm like, that's not a shiny tip. How can you tell if you have a clean tip versus an oxidized tip that needs maintenance? What are the signs?
Well, a clean tip is going to be shiny in a silver color. A really bad tip is going to be oxidized. It's going to be black. You could see some pitting in it, meaning the whatever was on your tip, flux or whatever, ate through the plated layer. So what a tip is made out of, it's copper. So it's copper, and that's for heat conduction. And then it's iron plated on top of the copper. So what happens if you're eating through the iron layer, and you'll see pitting there, especially if you look under a magnifying glass, that's bad. And that really can't be repaired. The other thing you don't want to do is use a piece of sandpaper. If your tip is very badly oxidized, you use a piece of sandpaper, especially on low-cost tips or cheap tips, you're going to end up taking off your plated lever, and you're just going to be on raw copper.
Yeah, Wiccan FPV in the chat says, I sharpen my tip on a grinder and then reflux it. Now, Wiccan, I can't tell if you're joking or serious, but as Randy has said, if you use any kind of abrasive to clean the tip, you will very likely remove that outer nickel layer, at which point you basically got bare copper, and it's going to just immediately oxidize again. So does that even work, Rand? Is there any way after you grind it away to restore the tip, or is it just done? It's
done at that point. You really have to get rid of it. What's going to happen is the copper contaminates the solder. The copper will be eaten away by the flux. So it's not a good fit. You mentioned nickel, but most of them are iron.
Oh, my bad.
Yep.
And I'm just going to, for people who are just joining the chat, this is my normal Q&A live stream. We have special guest Randy Rubinstein from SRA Solder. Randy's going to be with us for about maybe as much as an hour if I can tempt him to stay. But then we'll go into the normal Q&A. But we're talking about soldering iron tip maintenance. Ghost Branch FPV in the Discord asks, I once bought a tip cleaner that was like a brass wool ball with some kind of resin below it. Are those any good? What's the idea behind having like a resin at the bottom below the brass? Randy, does that ring a bell? Do you know what he's talking about?
Yes, I've seen those before. So the brass coil is what we're talking about for cleaning. And I've seen a few stations that will have that thing in the bottom of the resin is actually a tip tinner, which we're going to talk about. You'll see that in the video. So the tip tinner is mostly tin. That's why they call it a tinner. So it's got tin, it's got a little bit of copper in it usually, and sometimes a little silver. And it's got some chemicals there to remove the oxide from the tip. And so when you dip your soldering tip into a tip tinner, should come out very shiny. And then you're going to clean the residual back in your brass coil. I'll see that in the video.
One of the things that, before we get too far away from the question of how to tell if your tip is bad, one of the things that we talked about before the video is it's not just looking for the visible signs, but also if you put solder on the tip. Can't you tell from the behavior of the solder when you put the solder on the tip?
Right. So if it's badly oxidized, the solder will not stick to the tip. That's the best way to verify whether it's good or bad. So if solder's not sticking to it, you either have to remove some oxidation, and if it's really bad, get a new tip. So in the video, we'll show you how to remove oxidation and re-tip the tin. So if you can't get solder on it, it's not pitted, it just looks kind of black. Many times you can repair that with a tip tinner.
Okay. And when we say stick to the tip, this is a really important one because when the tip is working right, the solder will sort of flow onto the tip, and when it's not working right, the solder will kind of almost ball up and not want to stick to it, and that's a sure sign you've got a problem. Randy, let's go ahead and show the video that you're talking about. This is a video from SRA's YouTube channel. SRA has been working on adding videos to their YouTube channel, tutorials and stuff. And let's see here. I'm going to play the video. You are not going to be able to see it, Randy, because we're just on a voice call, but we're going to talk over it.
I'm actually watching you, but I'm probably a couple seconds behind.
Mm-hmm. So we preheat the tip to 350C. This is how to clean and maintain the tip. And if you don't have a soldering iron that lets you select a temperature, you definitely want one. You want a temperature-controlled iron. Now you're dipping the iron into tip tinner. Let's talk about that for a second. What is the tip tinner? It's this kind of gray, God only knows, probably gives you cancer, right? What is it?
Yeah, the tip tinner is probably it's about 97% tin. It's got some copper in it and some other compounds to remove oxidation from the tip.
And that's going to sort of remove the oxidation, clean the tip, but not in a chemical way, not an abrasive way.
Not an abrasive way. It's a chemical process.
Does it restore the coating at all?
It does not restore the iron. So if your iron's worn off, there's no way to repair that.
Okay.
But this will leave it with a fresh coat of tin on the tip. So it'll be much better for heat conductivity to the part.
A lot of people in the chat are having a lot of fun with the discussion of the tip. Keep it family friendly, folks. Now, I've heard the advice that when you are done soldering, you should just take some solder, blob it on there, and leave it on there to cool, and that protects it from oxidation. How is that? Is that the same thing as this tip tinner? Is that different? What's that doing?
It's basically the same thing as a tip tinner would do. The tip tinner is going to be more expensive to put on every time you're done soldering. So you can use some solder with a no clean flux and just put a little bit of solder on the tip and then dip the soldering tip into the brass coil to wipe off any excess, shut off your iron and leave it till the next time. So it will stay. Okay. It'll protect your tip from oxidizing.
Yeah. We got some super chats coming in. I'm just going to get them out of the way. No questions, I don't think, but Bit Vasconcelos, thanks for $2. Blizzard FPV, thanks for 99 Canadian cents, 99 cents Canadian. Jeffrey Brooks, $5 from JB1 to JB2. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, JB, best initials. And Ron Demand, thank you for $20. Thanks for the advice last night. Much appreciated. I don't remember what I advised you, but I hope it was good advice, and I hope it was worth $20. We got a question in the Discord. Marciano27 says, how do we avoid the tip fusing to the soldering iron so you can't change it later? I can't say as I've ever had that happen. Any thoughts, Randy?
No, I've not seen that happen. Maybe a bad heating element could have caused it to stick to the iron. That's the only thing I can think of.
That's a weird one. Jildor wants to know, how important is the watt rating on the iron? My 60-watt iron for $40 is crap. At work, we have an 80-watt soldering station from ERSA, and it can solder 10-gauge wires. Now, I want to encourage, I'm going to let Randy answer that question, but I do want to say, if you guys have questions about basic soldering station ratings and maintenance, the very first interview we did, which is on my channel, I'll put a link to it in the chat a little later, maybe, or you can just search for SRA Solder on my channel. We go deep into that stuff, and if that sounds interesting, definitely you're gonna love that video. Randy, do you catch the question?
Yeah, so 60 watt is probably more than adequate for most tasks you're going to be doing. 80 watts better, it's going to heat up faster, but 60 watt, you put a kind of a wide tip if you're doing, heavier gauge wire, like a 10 gauge wire, and that'll give you more surface area to help the solder melt. Mm-hmm. Most irons come with a conical tip, which is that kind of a round pointed tip. So if you got a big surface, like 10 gauge wire, you want to get a wide flat tip, either a chisel or a bevel tip, which will give you more surface area on the wire, which will help the solder melt and heat up your wire quicker.
Yeah, I think a takeaway is that the wattage alone doesn't tell you. Like there's an iron. It is a portable iron. It is the TS80, and this thing is 18 watts. It runs off a USB Type C connector, and yet somehow it makes the most of that 18 watts. It's just incredibly efficient. I've been amazed. I can solder 12 gauge with it. And I'm like, so the watt rating is definitely, if you have a cheap 60 watt iron, it's not, a good quality 40 watt iron is going to outperform it.
Right. It's more about tip selection than the wattage in many cases. And if it takes you 30 seconds versus 25 seconds with a higher wattage iron, it's probably not a big deal unless you're doing it all day long.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and finish watching this video. So we're tinning the tip. Remove excess with the brass coil. Let's see here. Repeat if necessary until you got a nice shiny silver tip. And if you keep doing it and you just cannot get the tip to be silver, well, maybe you need a new tip. You know, a new tip is like $6 or $8, maybe not even that much. Here's the before and after, the gray tip and the shiny silver tip. You know, if you can get a compatible tip, that definitely makes a big difference. And now we're going to apply the solder and see if it sticks. And this is what we were talking about earlier. If the solder sticks to the tip versus balling up and almost trying to get away from the tip, that tells you if it's clean. Randy, I asked if we could do a giveaway, and you said we could do a giveaway. Tell the folks what we're giving away. I think it's the stuff, some or all of the stuff in this video, not the soldering iron. But
not the soldering iron. So we put together a tip maintenance kit, which is the brass coil and the tip tinner. Sells for $13.99 on our site with free shipping. And that's what we're going to be giving away at the end of the live stream.
Okay. Yeah. What we're going to do, and I'll let you guys get started, but what we're going to do is this video that I'm looking at now, I'm going to paste the URL to that in the chat. There it is. You guys can leave one comment. Listen up now. Listen up. I'm not kidding. Leave one comment and one comment only on that giveaway. And when Randy's about to sign off, we'll do a drawing, and we will draw winners of the tip tinner and the brass sponge. I think you said we were going to draw 5 winners. If not, well, I guess now we are. We'll draw those before you leave. But people can go ahead and start leaving your comments. Don't leave more than one comment, or you'll be disqualified. See, because one comment, one entry. It has to be fair. Let's see here. How often, Dylan Weber wants to know, how often should I replace my copper coil? How do you know when that thing's worn out? Does it ever wear out?
It does wear out, and you'll see a lot of solder in it. So you really don't want to be sticking your soldering iron tip into a coil that's loaded with other solder, because you're going to contaminate it. You don't know what is in there. So we sell refills, I think, for $2 for the brass coil, so it's not worth worrying about it.
I've noticed that after I've been using mine for a long time, the little blobs of solder you're scraping off, sometimes they just kind of fall to the bottom, and then you knock it over and it falls on your carpet, and you just got all this copper on your carpet. That's not good. But a lot of it gets stuck in the brass sponge, and the brass sponge then just gets to be all full of solder and all stuck together. And if you're like me, I don't know, I'm left-handed, so I'm always coming into the sponge from one side and scraping. Sometimes I just take and do a 180 and I start scraping on the other side. But I get a little more. But no, I have just a box full of replacement sponges. So whenever I need it, I really literally do in my closet right now. Somebody asks how to prevent pads falling off the PCB. This is one of the biggest things people struggle with, especially as beginners, is lifted pads. And I would like to say that is also something I think we've talked about in one of our other videos. But go ahead, Randy, for the live stream. What do you think about that?
That's probably from too much heat. I don't know what temperature people run at, but if you're running at max on the iron, or your iron doesn't have adjustable heat, that's what can cause it to happen. Is the pad, too much heat is going to lift the pad off the board, the fiberglass off the board, and at that point you're in trouble.
Yeah. Slarta Bartfast says pads falling off is a crap board. Use through holes. Here's the thing, Slarta Bartfast. It's true that a pad with more copper is going to be more resistant to being lifted because it's just going to have more thermal mass to soak the heat. But if you're consistently lifting pads, I promise you it's your technique or your equipment. And that's a hard thing to say because my goal is always to help people, not to blame you. But in this case, I gotta just call it like it is. If you're lifting pads, people say to me, "I lifted 5 pads, setting up my JB flight controller. Why don't you use through holes?" And I'm like, "Why don't you use a soldering iron with temperature control?" But I don't say that. Yeah,
You just
temperature,
did.
temperature. Well, I did. You're right. Temperature control is mandatory. Don't get right, Randy. We don't get one of those $6 Radio Shack irons that you just plug into the wall and it just gets hot, but no temperature control.
Right. Yeah, you can buy one with temperature control for, we sell one on our site for about $29.99. It's got temperature control. So I don't even know if Radio Shack's still in business, but
I think they went out of business. They at least closed a lot of stores. But yeah, I remember Radio Shack. Folks, I'm posting the link to the giveaway video. You leave comments on this video. Any moderators who are in the chat are welcome to repost that. While
you're there, feel free to subscribe to our channel, and you'll see other helpful videos about soldering and cleaning circuit boards and anything to do with soldering.
Let's see. David Tatum says my link won't work on the iOS YouTube app. Unfortunately, this video is it's not private. It's what is it? Unlisted. You have to have the URL. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to figure out a way to make that work for you, David. You're not gonna be able to search for it. Wiccan FPV wants to know if silver solder is better since it's more conductive.
Well, most solders, lead-free solders, will have some silver in it. So one of the common one is a SAC 305, which has some silver in it. Some people will use a 96.5 tin, 3.5 silver. Those are the two most common lead-free solders. So they do have silver. So they are considered silver solders.
Sorry, 1 second, Randy. I am just posting that link. John B. I clean my room regularly, then it gets messy again. It's a work environment. This is not a. That's the way it is. So the solders all have silver in them. Wiccan FPV. I wonder what you're referring to when you say silver solder. I've heard of silver solder in like jewelry making, but that's not electrical solder.
That's not electrical. So that's a higher silver content solder. So people get confused between silver soldering and jewelry solders. Is really the term brazing is used, so it's over 800 Fahrenheit that you're silver soldering. So people mix in the jewelry world, they don't use the word brazing, they use soldering for everything, even a high silver alloy like a 65% sterling silver color. So
we know the difference. I'm trying to think. I used to know welding is when you're melting the base metal.
Correct.
Brazing, what's the difference between brazing and soldering?
Well, big thing is temperature. Anything above 800 is considered brazing, and you have some interaction with the alloy and the base metal, whereas soldering is under 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's really no interaction between the base metal and the filler metal.
Interesting. Yeah, I used to weld as a hobbyist only. Let me tell you guys, if you think soldering is cool, there's nothing as cool as taking a big piece of clong metal and going, "No, you're a liquid. I'm sticking you together." It's awesome. And I have to tell you, people who are good at welding, they understand how heat makes metal flow. And I think welders also can make good solderers, just on a whole different scale. Anyway, we've gotten a little bit off topic here.
Yeah.
Some people in the chat are asking about lead-free solder. This is also something we talked about in our first video. Should people use lead-free solder, Randy?
Most boards today are soldered with lead-free solder. 6337 melts easier, lower temperature, but does contain lead. And the big thing about lead is you don't want to ingest it. You don't want to use lead solder and then touch it with your hands and put food in your mouth.
Yeah.
That's the danger of lead. You can't really get sick from the smell of it. It's mainly just getting on your hands and touching it.
Yeah. but most industrial stuff is made with lead-free solder because of environmental laws. But for
Correct.
hobbyists, I think the recommendation, especially for people doing hand soldering, the recommendation is to use leaded solder because basically as long as you're not like licking it, you're probably not going to get it in your body. It's bad for the environment, but the amount that we're using is so freaking small that it's so much easier to solder with.
It's a much lower temperature. It's about 120 degrees Fahrenheit lower than the lead-free. So if you're going to use a leaded solder, I'd recommend 6337 versus 6040. I know someone says they use 6040 all day. 6337, the advantage of that's called a eutectic, which means its melting temperature, its flow temperature are the same, which means it's virtually impossible to get a cold solder joint with 6337. So it's very similar in melting temperature to the 6040. It's a little bit more money because it's got a little bit more silver, but it's easier to use because you can't get it. It's impossible to get a cold solder joint. With 6040, you can get a cold solder joint.
And I'm checking over here on the video. A few people in the chat are saying that they're having trouble getting to the video. I'm checking over here, and I can see people leaving comments for the giveaway. So I know it's out there. I don't know why some of you have trouble getting to it, but there it is. There it is. The URL is right there. At that point, you got to figure it out. I just don't know a better way to do it. MM75 wants to know, replacing ESC MOSFETs for someone with average soldering skills, yes, or disaster waiting to happen? MM75, when you're talking about like replacing FETs, any kind of surface mount rework other than like, I'm going to remove this capacitor with a fine tip, MOSFETs have a lot of pads, and in fact, some MOSFETs, if not all, have a pad underneath that is for heat dissipation. You really can't do that work without a hot air gun. If you're interested in that, let me point you to Leaveview FPV. Leaveview FPV is a FPV pilot who also does a lot of really amazing surface mount stuff. Randy, you should check out his channel, although you'll look at his work and you'll be like, oh yeah, there he is. You probably look at this stuff all day. He does the surface mount repair, including MM75. He's got a video where he repairs a FET on an ESC. Let me paste this in the chat. I'm going to paste the link to his channel in the chat. I'm not going to take time on the live stream to go digging for his ESC repair, but he had, oh, here we go. I got it. Cicada AIO FC and ESC repair, MOSFET replacement. MM75, can I suggest you check out the videos on his channel and ask yourself if that's something you feel like you can do. For the average hobbyist with a soldering iron, it's just not possible. You won't succeed. You absolutely need a hot air gun. And you need skills, because what's a good way to get started with surface mount soldering? Randy, any thoughts about that, or started with a hot air gun?
Easiest way is a hot air gun, but you can't do it with solder wire. If you use a very thin diameter solder wire, you can actually try laying a bead across the terminals of the IC, and the solder should flow and not have any bridges between the two. So you it's called drag soldering. So you put a little solder in your tip and you kind of drag it across the edge of the IC, and the solder should flow.
I'm looking up a tutorial while you're talking on how to, so there'll be some video for people. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the best way to do it. There are some tips that will have almost like kind of like a horse's hoof, where you can store the solder, so you can grab more solder, you can drive, kind of drag the solder. Here we go. Yep.
Yep. So, and I want to tell you guys, this guy, you're looking at this video and you're going, that doesn't look so hard. This guy is so good at this. Just trust me. It's not as easy as it looks, and I know that from personal experience, but it can be done. He's got a bridge. Let's see how he fixes the bridge. A little flux. I guess I spoke a little too strongly when I said it couldn't be done.
So he's got a bridge toward the end of it. You can see right at the end. He's going to fix it now.
So good. He's so good. Look how good he is. Yeah. Especially for now, one of the things I know that Liveview does is he uses hot air to remove the damaged components. I've tried to remove damaged components with a soldering iron, and the problem is you get one leg molten and the other leg's cold, and you end up ripping a pad off. How can you do removal of ICs and stuff using soldering iron? Can you?
That's a very good question. We have a product for that called Fast Chip.
Mm-hmm.
And what Fast Chip is, we have it in a leaded version and a lead free. And Fast Chip, I think there's a video on our site on how to do this. So basically, you're going to lay the alloy across. Get rid of that. Go down lower. I think there's a link to the video on our page here.
Let's see here. I don't see the video link.
Yeah, scroll down our page toward the bottom. Okay, this.
Maybe it's on your website. Let me check your website. Is it on the website?
Yeah, that is our website.
I mean the how to remove SMD components using a soldering iron. Here, perfect. I've got it right here. Yeah, let's see where he uses the Fast Chip. Now what he's using here, this is a SMD rework station, and we should take a second because I want to thank you for your time. These AOU.
Yeah.
This is I had never heard of this brand before I got to know you guys. This is a very good quality budget brand of solder and hot air rework stations. You can get a very nice temperature controlled iron for about $40 to $60 depending on what you want. And if you buy these are actually sold throughout the world, but if you're in the United States and you buy them from SRA, then you get actual sort of customer service and after sale support from an American company, which you're not always going to get if you buy it from Amazon from China. So if you are interested in getting into this kind of thing, this is a brand where you can kind of get into it with a reasonable amount of quality and not too much money spent.
So this is a $90 station. It's got hot air and soldering iron.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to look at him. He's putting some flux on here. Is that flux? Is that chip quick?
That's flux.
The Fast Chip.
That's flux. We're going to put down first. And then he's going to use the Fast Chip wire. It's a special removal alloy. And what that alloy does, it brings down the total melting temperature of the solder. Mm-hmm. And you can see him melting it on. And
he is really feeding that in there. He is feeding that in there.
Yep. It stays molten for a long time.
So don't get it on your skin. There was a guy, I was watching a video. He was making some kind of sugar candy, and he said, this is molten sugar. If this gets on your skin, you're going to have a bad day.
Okay, you see, so he put the alloy on first, and then went on both sides of the chip with the iron, took the iron away, and grabbed the part with the tweezers.
Mm-hmm. So if you are, and we'll finish up this topic, if you are interested in doing SMD rework with a soldering iron, you can do it with stuff like Fast Chip and Flux. But a hot air station, once you know how to use it, is going to make your life a whole lot easier. There's no doubt.
Right.
Greg M. says, is there anything special about the brass pads? I've just been using stainless steel pot scrubbers I get at the dollar store. They seem to work fine.
They're too aggressive, and they're going to take some of your plating off your tip. So I wouldn't recommend them.
Brass is a very soft metal.
Soft metal, exactly. And it's not going to be as aggressive as the steel wool would be, or stainless steel.
I'm going to post that video in the chat one more time. Here's the video. This is the video that you're going to leave a comment for the giveaway of the tip tinner and the brass sponge. Giving away 5 of those. Kyle K guesses that the Fast Chip remover has bismuth in it for a low melting point.
Very good guess.
Uh-huh.
It does have bismuth in it.
Kyle K. Bismuth also the one of the active ingredients in Pepto-Bismol. I only know that because I watched a video last night of this guy who has a channel. It's a chemistry channel. He does all kinds of crazy chemistry, and one of the things he was doing was making bismuth metal crystals from Pepto-Bismol. He bought a bunch. It was like, don't do this. This is not economical. It's just a stupid stunt for YouTube. But he actually ended up with a lump of metal bismuth in his hand that he extracted from bottles of Pepto-Bismol. Crazy. How good are foam pads for soldering iron? Gap tooth grinding, I think you're asking about the sponges. We talked earlier, basically Randy's advice was use the brass sponge and just basically don't use the wet sponge at all. The brass sponge is better.
Yep, I agree.
Let's see here. What's a good temperature to solder on a PCB? Marciano27 in the Discord. A very common question. We did talk about this in that first video, Randy. I keep saying that because that first video is gold. And it was like, how long? It was like 6 or 9 months, maybe even longer. And a lot of people who have come to my channel since then have no idea it exists. And it's total gold. You should totally go watch it. But what's a good temperature, Randy, for PCB soldering?
320 to 350 centigrade would be the best. I wouldn't go any higher than that.
Okay. 320 to 350. Some people run hotter. Some people like to run hotter. Wow.
Yeah, when you do that, you run the risk of oxidizing your tip faster, but you can get your soldering done faster. So there's a trade-off. Now, we sell tips for about $4 each on our website. You can find some really cheap ones that come from China. They probably have tariffs on them now, but that sell for like $1.50. Beware of those because they got very little plating on them and they're not going to last. So you better off getting a good tip like one of the RU tips or a Hakko tip, which Hakko's going to be more expensive. You're paying for the name, but our tips are pretty comparable to that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about because I have a Hakko iron and obviously I have a Hakko tip. I usually run about 750 Fahrenheit, but sometimes I'm up at 850. I have never had a problem with the performance of the iron except once I left it on at 850 all night long. And then after that, I was like, well, that's probably not good. And I replaced the tip. But there's people out there who reach out to me and they have a cheap tip and it's just garbage in a week. What's the difference between like a good quality tip and a cheap tip that makes the good quality tip last longer?
It's the plating that's on the tip, the iron plating. Because what happens is that the plating could be very thin on the cheap tips, and the flux will actually eats away the tip. So that's what's happening. You're getting pitting in it. Once your flux layer is gone, then you're into the copper, and then it just goes downhill from there.
Right. So they'll just have a very thin layer of that coating, and it'll just burn through immediately.
Right.
Are Hakko and Oye... damn it.
Are you?
Are you? I'm so sorry. I can't. Are Hakko and Ayu tips interchangeable, Randy?
Yes. Our tips will fit the 900 series Hakko irons.
And vice versa.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So our tips are not compatible with the Hakko if it's the long ones that contain the heating element within the tip. But the 900 series is compatible.
This is one of the things that's actually better about the irons that you sell compared to everybody knows Hakko and Weller. Those are the two of the big names anyway.
Right.
But one of the nice things about the irons that you sell is that you have the heating element is separate from the tip. Is that right?
That's correct. We do have models where the heating element is part of the tip. And those tips are obviously more expensive because of the heating element. But the 9378 and the 937 and the 469 they all use the same tips, and the element is in the iron itself, so they slides right over the tip. Well, the tip slides over the iron.
The heating element.
Yeah, heating element.
Let's see here. Dave Lockwood. No, Dave. Dave, do not. Dave trying to post spoilers in the chat.
Oh, I saw that.
Dave, I've removed your message. Don't, you naughty boy. Don't do that. You can't say, listen, you can't say spoiler alert and then just shout a spoiler into the chat. That's not how spoiler alerts work. The spoiler alert only works if people have the opportunity to not look at your message. Spoiler alert, Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. Okay, that movie was like 15 years ago, so I think we're okay. Streets FPV, do you need a heat station to surface solder? Well, like we talked about a little earlier, a hot air station is going to make it a lot easier, but it can be done with tools like fast chip and and an iron. It is possible.
Yeah,
It is possible.
definitely.
Let's see here. I think, let's see. Let me check on that video. We've got the video here. People are leaving. I'm going to paste the link one more time. There we go. We're going to be giving away the tip tinner and the brass sponge to 5 of the people who have left comments. How many comments do we have right now? 76. Is that for real? There's only 76 comments? Wow. That's going to be a great... Yeah, good odds
for people.
Good odds. 102 comments. It's gone up a little bit. And we're going to be finishing up this segment of the live stream in just a little bit, and then we'll be doing a regular Q&A. So if you're wondering when the Q&A is, that's... Let's see here. Now everybody's just posting spoilers about... Yeah, we watched, Issa and I were watching the final season of Game of Thrones, and we watched it as soon as, we don't usually care because we just watch it on streaming, but we didn't want to be spoiled. So like literally at 9:05 p.m. on Sunday night, we were watching Game of Thrones. So let's see here. I'm looking for any other questions. I think we're starting to wrap up. Slaughter Bardfast says the link doesn't work in the YouTube app. So just, can you copy and paste the link? I mean, it's just a video link. Why wouldn't it work? And I'm a moderator, obviously, so it should work.
I tried it, Josh, and it does work.
Yeah, okay. Some people are having some trouble. I don't know why. What about Avengers? No, stop. Still post movie. Look, I don't care. I'm not. But other people are going to be really annoyed. Anybody who's posting spoilers in the chat is going to get kicked. So let's just not do it. Let's not do it. Other people are going to be super annoyed about that. Did we miss anything, Randy? We talked about tip maintenance. We talked about what not to do, how people destroy their tips, running it too hot, using abrasive cleaners, or just eventually they wear out. I think we're pretty good. Anything else, Randy, that we overlooked or that we want to make sure we get to?
There's nothing else I can think of. If something comes up later, you can always drop me an email, Joshua, and I'll get back to you.
I'm going to go ahead and put the SRA. This is SRA's website, SRA Solder. SRA, of course, you ship internationally, I assume. But
yes, we do.
You're based in the U.S. If you're in the U.S. and you're looking for solder products, this is a little bit of a no-brainer. Basically, the way I think of it is these soldering stations that you sell, some people would buy them from a China company and get it and have no support.
Right.
And instead they can buy it. It's decent quality or you guys wouldn't be selling it. So it's better than your average kind of just cheap as possible Chinese stuff. It's decent quality, and by buying it from SRA, then you get an actual sort of warranty and replacement and support afterwards, which you're not going to get from...
Right. Also, Joshua, there's a link on the bottom of our site. We have a partner in the UK where customers can get the tip tinner and the brass coils from them. It's called the Allendale Group. It's at the bottom of the live stream.
Yep, I pasted it in there. So,
yep.
So we will go ahead. Let's go ahead. I'm going to paste that link one more time, and we'll let people enter their comments, but then we'll go ahead and we'll draw the winners. And if you're selected as the winner, you'll need to email me with your mailing information so that we can go ahead and get that out to you. Let's have a look here. 211 views, 120 comments, still going up. Is there a fix for BLHeli32 2SC share the same identifier? Mark for Varian. Yeah, Mark, that whenever you see that error message, it means that you have two signal wires touching. Probably it's not the wires. Probably it's the pins. Well, the way this commonly happens, Mark, is you plug in the plug and the pins are not quite lined up right, and one of the pins gets bent over sideways as you shove the plug in. You're like, get in there. You bend the pin over, and now the motor 3 pin is touching the motor 4 pin. And when you try and use the ESCs, you get that error message. So unplug the plug, check the pins for physical damage, and just straighten them back out again. There you go. We're starting to get into the regular questions. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to grab this URL, and we're going to go to the Sandra series random comment picker, and we're going to draw. I apologize to anybody who had trouble getting to the video, but it's just a YouTube video URL. You got to just be able to do that. Derek Koblenz, people say the SMA connectors are only good for so many mating cycles is the term you're looking for. Will taking off my antennas every time I fly shorten the life of the SMA connectors? Derek, you are correct. SMA connectors are supposed to only be good for so many cycles. I'm actually not sure the number of cycles, but it might be as many as a few hundred. It's certainly not 1,000. I'm pretty sure about that. What some people will do is they'll get a right angle adapter, and then they'll leave the right angle adapter on the module so that if the SMA wears out, the right angle adapter wears out, then you just replace it. In reality, I may not be the best example because I get a new module every 6 months or a year because I'm testing something new. Maybe I don't wear it out as much. You will wear them out, it is true. If you care about that, get a right angle adapter. Let's go ahead and pick some winners here. We have 126 users found. We're going to pick 5 winners. If you are one of the winners, please contact me. Email me, joshuabardwell@gmail.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And you'll need to give me your address. Remember, if you have more than one comment, you are disqualified. Let's pick some winners. Randomly pick winner number 1, Terminal LCPL. That's 1. Number 2, Josh Feltz. Number 3, Jeff Lang. Number 4, Jeff Lang again? No. Number 4, Fabio Rodriguez. And number 5, Mr. Spat. These are going to be our 5 winners of the tip tinner and the brass sponge. All right. Randy, I'm going to thank you for being here. I'm going to let you get out of here. It's like 9 o'clock on a Monday night. So, thank you for coming out, Randy. I'm going to also post, I'll post this in the chat, but if you check out my website and you search, or my YouTube channel, and you search for SRA Solder, you'll see this video, interview with a solder expert, and the soldering expert is back. And these are my 2 interviews with Randy, and they are, if I do say so myself, freaking gold. If you solder, you should watch these. In other words, you should watch these. All right, Randy, I'm going to let you go.
Okay, thank you very much, Joshua. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and happy soldering out there.
Happy soldering. All righty. Yeah, congratulations to the winners. I do have an affiliate link to his site somewhere. I should have set that up before. Let me, my account. Do I have, where is it? He made me an affiliate link. I'm like, well, I don't know if we're, $13 tip tinners. I'm not sure. Hang on. Where is the... I could never figure out how to make a freaking affiliate link for his site. My affiliate programs. Not going to do this here on the chat. Anyway. All right, guys. So that is the first hour of the live stream. Thanks to Randy for being here and talking with us about soldering. I will always take a chance to talk with him when I can. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We are now going to continue with the regular Q&A that you guys are usually used to. If you missed it, Lewis Hayden, the DVR will be up later tonight or tomorrow, and you can go ahead and watch the whole thing. Kyle K, yeah, I'll get this YouTube stuff, monetization stuff eventually. I'll figure it out once in a while. Steel Rain FPV, what's up, dude? Ethan Mitchell, which of my videos would I recommend for PID tuning for a new pilot? Ethan Mitchell, I got to tell you, Ethan, here's what I would say. Start with this one. Betaflight 3.5 baseline PID tune. No black box, dang it. This is how I do a baseline PID tune, and you're going to find out that I barely touch the PIDs. And then This is my Betaflight 4.0 video. Betaflight 4.0 PID tune for best stick feel. Those are two videos I'd suggest if you really want to start learning about PID tuning. It's my PID tuning masterclass. That's a whole playlist. But here's the thing. PID tuning is less necessary than it ever has been. It's increasingly becoming irrelevant because the default PIDs are so good. And most of the time when I find myself tuning PIDs, I'm not really tuning the PIDs. I'm tuning other things like feed forward or iTerm relax. And so PID tuning, there's a place for it. Eventually you will run into a problem that you need it, but it's not actually where I would suggest you start. Tim Allardyce, how do you calibrate a gyro? I think my trash can's messed up after whacking a pole. Tim, the gyro automatically calibrates itself every time you plug in a battery. When the quadcopter goes beep, 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 after you plug in the battery and it goes doo-doo-doot, doo-doot, that's your ESCs, and then you set it down and it goes beep, 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 that's the gyro calibrating. That's what those three beeps mean. So your gyro will automatically calibrate itself every time you turn it on. If you're having problems after whacking your quadcopter against a tree, maybe your accelerometer is messed up. If you're having problems with auto level mode, that's the accelerometer, not the gyro. INFPV wants to know, what is iTerm relax? So the iTerm, if you could just sum up what the iTerm does, is it makes the quadcopter fly sort of stiffly. And that's good because, like, imagine that you were just flying in a straight line. Well, if there was no iTerm, every random little bobble of the wind would cause the quad to drift, and it wouldn't sort of track and hold steady. The problem with iTerm is that during very abrupt moves like flips and rolls, the iTerm gets super worried. And at the end of the flip or roll, the iTerm goes, oh, let me fix this. And you'll get a soft bounce back, a soft single bounce back at the end of the flip or roll. And that usually means the iTerm is having a problem. The reason that happens is that when you do the flip or roll, as you enter the move, the set point is usually way faster than the quad is actually moving. The quad can only accelerate so fast. So you bang the stick over, and the quad is supposed to be going 1,000 degrees per second, but it's not. And the iTerm goes, oh no, we were going too slow for a minute here. A quadcopter finishes the flip, and the fact that it was not quite going 1,000 degrees per second, you don't care. But the iTerm is like, oh, we need to, let me get this, let me clean this mess up. It's over. It's done. What iTerm relax does is causes the iTerm to stop accumulating during fast moves like flips and rolls. So when the quad is just flying straight and level, the iTerm is like, I got this. We're super, everything is stiff and tight. And then when you do a flip or roll, the iTerm is like, and it's like, calm down, iTerm. Don't worry. We'll let you come back out of the cage in a minute. That's iTerm relax. Cyrus Johnson says, please stop personifying things. No. It's fun. It's funny, and it helps people understand concepts in a relatable way. That's what I'm gonna do. Pav Alvarez says, what are my thoughts of using common ground, even with different voltages? VBAT and 5 volt all mixed together on one ground. The thing is, ground is ground. The essence of this type of electrical system is that there is a single ground reference for everything. So there has to be a common ground. If there wasn't a common ground, then stuff couldn't talk to each other. You absolutely have to have a common ground, period. Lord Grilvath, thank you for 19 Norwegian kroner. Danny Wenzel, thanks for $2. License to Drive, thanks for £2. No questions, just a couple super chats. Ghost Branch FPV going to bed in Cologne, Germany. It's 3 a.m. there. Thanks for coming out, Ghost Branch. Thanks for your question. Scott in the Discord. Scott asks, my Flea 14 receiver does not communicate with my iFlight Sussex RX flight controller. The iFlight has 2 UARTs, one for RX, one for TX. Well, pardon me. It has 2 UARTs, or it has 1 UART with 2 pads, an RX and a TX. It has every different receiver except FlySky. So, as a rule of thumb, FlySky receivers also can work on a Spectrum, a DSM pad. Both FlySky iBus and Spectrum have a non-inverted receiver protocol. So if your flight controller doesn't have anything called out for FlySky, try using the Spectrum DSM pad. Don't use the 3.3 volt power. The Spectrum receiver probably needs 3.3 volts, but the FlySky receiver probably doesn't. But you use the Spectrum pad, or use any spare RX pad, but don't use the S-Bus pad. Now here's what's confusing. The S-Bus pad on your flight controller has an inverter, so it will not work with iBus protocol as used by most FlySky receivers. But some FlySky receivers output S-Bus. So if you have a FlySky receiver and you can't get it to work with iBus on a regular RX pad, try the S-Bus pad and try setting your receiver protocol to S-Bus, and it might suddenly start to work. Don P says, I'm trying to apply the newest hex file to my ESC for RPM filtering. I downloaded all the updates from GitHub. When I click ignore and pick from list, I get no hex file options. Any ideas? So what you're doing, let's just pull up BL Heli Suite 32 here, and we'll put this on the stream. No. Hang on. So what you're doing is you're trying to flash BL Heli. Oh, I got to connect up. I don't have a quadcopter here to do this. Sorry, I can't. I'm not going to get up and get a quadcopter just for this demo. You're saying you can't find the hex files. Well, where did you download them? Where'd you download them from GitHub? Where'd you put them on your hard drive? That's the question. You got to find them. So, like, here we are on the GitHub BL Heli, right? And here is test code rev3264 hex files, right? These are the hex files you want. So then you're going to right click. It's not save link as. No. Yeah, we're going to right click raw and do save link as, and that will download and save the file. So I'll go back and do that again because I did it kind of quick. You're going to go here. You're going to go here, Don. Boom. You're going to find the file you're looking for. You're going to click it. You're going to right click the raw button and you're going to do save link as, and that'll download and save the file for you. And if you do it that way, it will come down with the hex extension that you're looking for. Okay. Let's see. License to Drive points out that on the FlySky FS RX2A Pro receiver, failsafe only works on the iBus output. It doesn't have failsafe over PPM. Well, you really shouldn't be using PPM anyway, if I could just say that. You really shouldn't be using PPM, especially if you have an iBus capable receiver. Joey Boots FPV says, are there any disadvantages to using a Spectrum receiver with a 4-in-1 module and an X9D? Someone's trying to Skype me. Don't Skype me. Don't Skype me. Nope. Let me kill Skype here. People are going to start calling me, trying to call me on the live stream. Are there any disadvantages to using a Spectrum receiver with a 4-in-1 module in an X9D? Well, I'm sure if you're Horizon Hobby, you'll be like, oh my God, that's terrible. Practically speaking, I don't think there's any disadvantages. The module itself, I mean, maybe you'll get a little extra latency from the PPM interface to the module, but in general, no, it's fine. Just do it. Dale Kennedy wants to know, can you repair the USB port on your quad if it breaks off? I have 2 quads sitting around because the USB ports broke off. If it didn't lift the pads, if it just, like, the solder broke off but the pads are intact, in theory, you could solder it back on. Practically speaking, most people don't have the skill or equipment to solder it back on, and it probably lifted the pads, in which case you're probably done. You're probably done. Mark Dibble wants to know, how are the OLED screens holding up in the FPV community's HDOs? Mark Dibble, I think it's still a little too soon to tell. If you ask yourself, what is the rated lifespan? So the issue Mark is asking about is that OLED screens often have a problem with burn-in. And some people have suggested that the HDO, the Fat Shark HDO with OLED screens, if people use it with OSDs, which everyone is, they're going to get burn-in issues. I think it's too soon to tell. Think about it. What's the rated lifespan of those screens? I don't know. But how often do people use them? I mean, it's not like this is a television that's just on for 12 hours a day for months. Like, if you go out to fly 2 or 3 times a week, you're putting 4 or 6 hours of use per week on your goggles. I think that everybody who's worried about burn-in is going to be proved wrong, because I don't think we use our goggles very much. You know what I mean? We don't fly hours and hours and hours a day every day. I think that by the time you're 5 years into owning your HDOs, you'll have way less hours on them than they're actually rated for. That's just my guess. Kyle K says problems get swept under the rug. I don't know about that. Wait, it's a ground fault. Never mind. That's a different question. So if there were people having burn-in on their HDOs, I guarantee you they would be screaming about it. So I'm just going to assume it's not happening. Let's see. Donnie24 FPV in the Discord wants to know how I'm mounting a micro camera in my Marmot. I'm mounting it using this mount from BMC 3D. This is a great 3D designer. Just fantastic products. And what this does, you can mount a micro camera just using some M2 washers, but the problem is it'll be so far back that you'll see the cage. So what you want is this, which adapts it inward, but also pushes the camera forward. That's how I do it. That's what I recommend. It's $3. So yeah, no big deal. Enzo Zuyani, why does Betaflight freeze up when I go into the modes tab for my Emacs Buzz? The answer to that, Enzo, is that Emacs shipped the Buzz with a pre-release version of Betaflight 4.0 on it, and then Betaflight 4.0 changed, so now the configurator of the release version is not compatible anymore. The answer is, Enzo, you have to update your Buzz to Betaflight 4.0.2, and then it'll work. Which kind of sucks, because you didn't buy a ready-to-fly quad because you wanted to flash the firmware or configure it. But what I would suggest you do, Enzo, is go to the CLI, type diff all, enter, diff, D-I-F-F, all, then save all that text out to a text file, then flash it to 4.0.2, and now it will not lock up anymore when you go to the modes tab, and then paste that stuff back in. Let's see here. Lost Johnny has an OLED screen on his 2013 BlackBerry. No burn-in and used every day. Well, Lost Johnny, you still have a 2013 BlackBerry, so good for you. Yes, some OLED screens were more susceptible to burn-in than others. What was the Google? The Google phone had one year had a lot of bad burn-in, but then they fixed it. I don't know. Roland B says, if there's a ground fault, where does it go? I'm going to need more information to answer that question. I don't understand the question. Steel Rain FPV wants to know if Clearview has ever got back to me on the Fat Shark module, or have they abandoned the whole product due to Rapid Fire's popularity and price point. I certainly couldn't speak to Clearview's business plan. I will say they significantly discounted the Clearview module, and I haven't seen any announcements of it raising its price back up. The next product Clearview announced was a ground station, not a module. So I haven't heard anything more about a new updated Clearview module. And Rapid Fire is pretty freaking good. So, yeah. Seems like they're putting their effort into ground stations, though. Wiccan FPV, Kakute F7 reads too high. 11 amps with just USB plugged in. Can't get it down. What's going on? Wiccan FPV, the Kakute F7, if you're using it with the Teco 32 ESC, you need to be using ESC telemetry, not analog current sensing. Depending on the ESC you're using, you may have the wrong sensor selected. That's the long and short of it. Is the original Chameleon frame still worth flying? Athix asks. To me, the Chameleon TI beats the original Chameleon hands down. The original Chameleon had an aluminum front end, which is just not as strong as the titanium front end on the TI. The titanium front end of the TI is just the strongest thing. It's stronger even than the Marmot, in my opinion, because it's a single piece and it doesn't have the screws holding it together. The Marmot is still strong enough, don't get me wrong, but the Chameleon I think the Chameleon's stronger. So I would not fly the original Chameleon. I'd fly the Chameleon TI if that's what you're curious about. I made a video that said the Chameleon beats the TI. Where did I make that video? I'm not sure about that. When did I say the original Chameleon beats the TI? I don't think that's right. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's right. Andrew Brothers, thank you for $5 in the super chat. I'm getting really bad 30 to 50% vibration on Betaflight 4.0. Motors are hot. You should install Betaflight 4.0.2, Andrew Brothers. If you're already on 402, then go back to default. Go back to default. No, raising D-min, Andrew. Andrew asks, should I raise D-min? If you have hot motors, raising D-min will make them hotter. D-min allows the D-term to come down and cool the motors. If you raise D-min, your motors will get hotter. So that's the opposite of what you should do. But Andrew Brothers, if you're on 400, you should flash to 402. The 400 had some issues about the filtering. Let's see here. Alex Dalton. My professor said that a 2.4 gigahertz and a 900 megahertz wave should go the same distance, but 900 megahertz has more penetration. That's a tough question. Free space path loss is dependent on frequency. So if you're calculating free space path loss, lower frequencies experience less loss over the same distance. Practically speaking, we do seem to experience better penetration for lower frequencies. To 4 FPV, what about putting 402 on the Xylo stacks that has its own hex not found on the list? I don't know why Get FPV did this, but the Xylo stacks, which by the way is a pretty freaking good flight controller and ESC at a pretty decent price. I'm a fan of it, but you can't get the firmware. You can't get the firmware from Betaflight. I don't know why that is. Why are the Betaflight devs not building this for them? You can only have 400. They haven't released 402. They got to get on that. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you buy a stack that doesn't... I don't know why the Betaflight devs aren't releasing these targets, but they're not. And when you buy a flight controller that doesn't have official support for the target, then sometimes you're just at the mercy of the vendor. So bug Get FPV to build you a 402 target. They added it? INFPV said they added it? Let's check. We don't have to guess. Sorry, I'm a scientist at heart. Well, something like it. Let's just look. Let's just look. Choose a board. Is it here or isn't it? No, there it is. Xylo F4. Okay, it's there. 403 is the first version, though. So you can't have 402, but you can have 403. And by the way, someone asked earlier, when will 403 release? Well, apparently it released January 6, 2019. So that was, wait. Oh, I see. June 1st. My bad. That's not the way that we do time here in the American live stream. June 1st. Let's see here. Snot FPV says I lost all my video on my I lost my OSD on my trash can after a crash. Good video, flies fine. What gives? Probably the OSD chip broke somehow. There's a chip. It's called a Max something or other, Max chip. And if it breaks, then you won't get any OSD. You still will get video though, because basically the video signal just passes through without being modified. That's probably, I mean, anytime somebody says I crashed and then something stopped, I get this a lot. Somebody says I crashed, then my X stopped working. What do you think happened? And I'm like, you just told me that you crashed. So you crashed and then you broke it. Yeah, what should I don't know, replace it? My quad was flying fine. I crashed and now I get oscillations when should I change my PIDs? No. You crashed and something broke. So find out what broke and replace it. Okay. The front fell off. That's right, Kyle. Okay. The front fell off. Crashing and getting video noise to 4FPV. If you get video noise after a crash, most likely what's happened is that you have a motor that's out of balance. When a motor creates more vibration, the PID controller will translate the physical vibration into electrical vibration, which translates into video noise. Michael Clegg's Please High KV 6S Race Tune. Been the hardest tune ever. Michael, I may or may not do that, but I'm not going to do it here on the live stream, so not a lot of point there. High KV 6S. The thing is, I'm not a high-end racer. I don't typically fly ultralight high KV 6S whatever, so I'm not sure I would be the right guy to do that tune anyway. I would tune it to fly like a freestyle quad, and racers would go, OMG, what's wrong with you? Drone Playground wants to know, can I comment 3 version of main plate in Marmot frame? What do you mean by 3 version of main plate, Drone Playground? Let's look. Let's look at the Armatan Marmot page. 3 versions of the main plate. I thought there were 2. Where do I... No, I don't... Where do I pick the... There we go. No, it's Armatan Classic or Space Grade. What's the 3rd version? Frisbee, why does my battery straps drawer say use sparingly? It's a joke. As a reviewer, I just get buckets and buckets of battery straps all the time. So it's a joke. It's just a joke. Let's see here. Does anybody know how to put the Emacs Buzz into bootloader mode? I see nothing online. Enzo, you can do it by going to the CLI and typing BL, or there's a bootloader button on the flight controller. If you hold it down, then it should plug in and go into bootloader mode. Space Grade Special Edition and Classic Carbon. Where's Special Edition? The Special Edition, I think... I'm not... You know what? I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to guess. There's a Special Edition Marmot. I mean, we could certainly just try and look it up. Marmot Special Edition. Is this that... Yeah, I thought so. Okay, when they were first releasing the Marmot, they had the option to do this Special Edition Carbon with this extra big weave pattern. And it's like purely cosmetic. Flip. Is it a little weaker? Hang on. Some of you prefer the look of the Carbon, the one with a large pattern checkered weave. Change to the large pattern. The only when you that's it. It's just a large checker pattern. I don't think it's even any different. I think it's just cosmetic. So it's just a large. That's all it is. I broke my Marmot. I broke one of my Marmots. To be fair, I did not crash it into a pile of pillows. I crashed it like full. I overcorrected and like full throttle upside down into a obstacle. So I'm not mad that it broke. But I am going to replace it with the standard Carbon just so I can see what it's like to tune the standard Carbon versus the Space Age Carbon and see, because I still think I think the regular carbon is stronger. I don't. Armatan says that the numbers don't bear that out, but it just doesn't feel that way to me. I don't know. Carlos G wants to know what I recommend for lowering noise level in terms of motors and props. Carlos, do you mean noise like audible noise? Larger props with lower RPM are quieter. That's the answer. 2-blade props are a little quieter than 3-blade, I think, although 3-blade are a little higher frequency. Maybe? I don't know. New quad finished, asks BA, but on Betaflight setup tab, the quad starts spinning slowly while just spinning flat on my desk. I wouldn't worry about it, BA. If you mean in the setup tab, sometimes there's just a little bit of background noise that causes the 3D model in the setup tab to spin. It's probably going to be fine. What Big and Mouth 1, thank you for $2 in the super chat. What's my opinion of 5S on high kV motors? I have a video about that coming out, Big and Mouth, where I fly 2150 kV on 6, 5, and 4S and have a pretty surprising conclusion. Look for that video to come out tomorrow, probably. 5S high kV, though? I mean, what's high kV? Do you mean like 2500 kV? That's just got to be a battery killer. So I'm not sure what I could... I'm not sure about that. Michael Cleggs, look at last commit. I'm going to need more you got to give me more context, guys. I appreciate the $5 donation, Michael Cleggs. I think you were the same guy who was asking for the 6S tune. You say look at last commit. I'm assuming you're talking about GitHub, but it's like been 10 minutes since you left your comment, and I have no idea what you're talking about. High kV 5S is 2400 kV. I mean, Alex Dalton, 6S 2150 kV flew actually pretty decent. I mean, I got 3,000 watts pulled when I did a full throttle punch. So, I mean, I'm not sure I would do that every day, but it was okay. I think 5S 2400 kV might be more flyable than many people would think. Wolves FPV has flown 5S on 2400 kV for nearly 2 years and would recommend it to anyone. Wolves FPV, but what batteries do you run? And like, if you really like full throttle it, it's just got to be through the moon. The other problem I had with 6, and you'll see about this in the video tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. At 6S 2150 kV, like the quad flew fine. There were no oscillations or hot motors. It was fine. But it was very hard to get throttle control. It hovered at like 18% throttle, and if you just touched the throttle, it was up to the moon. So I mean, 6S 2150 kV might be okay with a throttle curve. 5S 2400 kV might be okay with a throttle curve, but I'm not sure I'd want to fly it that way just with no curve or nothing. Let's see here. What do I think of the Mamba stacks and what makes them so cheap? Asks Johnny Mnemonic. I'm a big fan of Diatone's Mamba stacks, the Mamba flight controller and ESC. You could get a Mamba flight controller and ESC for like $45. That's as much as a flight controller anywhere else. I'll say this about them: they're not the worst. They're decent. And at a price of $45, they're going to be the right thing for a lot of people. How are they so cheap? I don't know. I don't know how Diatone does it. What will happen, asks Alex Goresh, if I run my 2345 kV motors on 6S? Would I need 2345? Really? That's your kV? 2345? It's the combination of my luggage. Would I need to change motors if I was on 5S? I mean, Alex, you can run 2345 kV on 6S. Eventually you get to the point where the prop is exceeding or approaching the sound barrier and things get really crazy. I mean, Maddie, I'm pretty sure, runs like 2600 kV on 6S, but just your batteries just die. Your props explode. You get desyncs and your quad falls out of the air because of the electrical spikes. It gets really crazy. So you can do it, but it's not necessarily good. Wiccan FPV wants to know what I think about Zing 2206 1850 kV on 6S with quad at 600 grams. 2206 is, I think it's too small. That's just such a small motor. I've heard some people say that they think that smaller motors on 6S do really well, but only on ultralight quads. So I probably wouldn't run 6S. An 1850 kV is kind of high kV for 6S. It's doable, but you're going to pull a lot of current, and you're going to need something to soak all that heat. So I'm not sure I would do that. Fear and Loathing in FPV. Thank you for $2 in the super chat. Any thoughts on the iFlight Cinebee 75 HD? I think that I know the one you're talking about. A lot of people are asking about these ones. Let's pull it up real quick. Let's pull up the Cinebee. iFlight Cinebee. Yeah. Give me a picture. This one reminds me a lot of the Tiny Leader HD, in that you've got these ducts right here, these plastic ducts screwed to the carbon frame. And the advantage of that is that if you break something, you can replace the duct all by itself without having to replace the whole bottom plate, and that's pretty cool. But I flew the Tiny Leader HD, and it did not fly great. So I haven't flown the Cinebee 75 HD, but my initial impression of this type of frame with the... maybe it's not fair to blame this because the Tiny Leader didn't do well for me. At $170, it's kind of expensive. It better be freaking great at that price. I mean, what's a Mobula 7 HD cost? $150. Well, that's not that much more, I guess. 170. I guess it's $30 more. That's something. $20 more. $20. I don't know. I have to reserve judgment, I guess. I guess I have to reserve judgment. Maybe I should get one and fly it. What does anyone else say about it? What, Albert Kim, do you like it? Copper top? Let's see. Albert Kim's got a review. We could all just watch Albert's review of it and see what he says. I just say, if Albert likes it, I like it. That's what I say. And that's my final word. Thank you for $2. Go give Albert your $2. Fear and Loathing. Sorry about that. Kyle K, we're talking about motor heat, and Kyle K points out that the enamel on the motor windings will have a temperature limit. That is true. I looked that number up once upon a time, and it's around 190 to 220 Celsius, higher than you'd think. That enamel can get surprisingly hot before it burns off. However, you got to keep in mind that simply touching the motor bell doesn't tell you anything about the temperature inside the windings, and you could get burns in the windings where the heat really builds up, when the outside is not as hot as that. So worth talking about. Justin Ward has no problems with his tune on 3S, but on 4S, I can almost hear it trying to freak out when armed sitting on the ground. Justin, I wonder if what you've got there is gyro noise of some kind, electrical noise, and maybe you need more filtering. It's usually the case that on higher voltage you get more noise, and sometimes you need a little bit more filtering. So if you're not on default PIDs or default filters, I mean, usually when you go to higher voltage, you need to lower your P and your D gain. Maybe you try lowering your D gain a little bit. Maybe you try lowering the filter cutoffs to filter more. Those are some things to do. Hello, Guillermo. Guillermo made it. Is 6S okay for a Hawk 5? I mean, the Hawk 5 comes with like 2400 kV motors. I wouldn't run 6S on that. I chose the original. Coty says, I chose the original over the TI. No, did I? That's the Rooster. That's the Rooster, not the TI. Oh, it's in there though, isn't it? Damn. Why did I choose the original, Katiz? I don't want to rewatch the whole video. Tell me why I chose it. I mean, it doesn't matter. My opinion today is what it is. I mean, I'm allowed to change my opinion. Oh, here it is, right at the timestamp. All right, let's see what I said. Let's see what I said. Hang on.
For me, I think it's going to be the original Chameleon, and that suits me as sort of a curmudgeon who hates everything new, and why are they always trying to improve things, except for that one thing that they did that I liked. That was a good decision. For a lot of people, the Rooster is going to be the best choice, especially if you want removable arms and you don't care so much about maybe that 1 millimeter of slop that you get when you crash or something. And if you sort of want the amalgam of the solid bottom plate, but you want the improvements that they put into the Rooster, that's the Chameleon T.
Well, what didn't I like about the T? Yeah.
With the Rooster, so or the Chameleon TI. So for me, like what.
What do we do? May 21st, 2018. That was like over a year ago. Yeah, well, so I've changed my mind. Whatever. Let's see here. What are my thoughts on the Mini Magnum 6S version? Emax Magnum stack has always been... I've always been a little impressed with it. However, the very first version of the Emax Magnum stack... Like, it didn't have smart audio built into the VTX. Emax's Mini Magnum 6S, I mean, I already like it. It's is it a 20 millimeter 6S capable stack? Because if so, then I just already love it. Mini Magnum 2 F4 6S 35 amps. Is it 25 mil? Is it 20 mil? Oh, I see. It's not exactly. The ESC is 36 millimeter. Very clever. $100. It's got a VTX. $100 with a VTX. That's tough. Oh, additional UARTs. It's always been a little short on UARTs. Yeah, but why? Like, I guess you have the additional, the 20 millimeter flight controller lets you get these capacitors on here. I guess that's nice. $100. It'd have to be good. I mean, I guess it's got a VTX, though. You can spend $75 on a flight controller in ESC. You can spend $60 on a flight controller in ESC. So $100 for one with a VTX, it's got to be good at this price. That's what I'll say. It's got to be good. Like, that's the price where if it were $75, you go, well, heck, even if it's mediocre, it's probably worth buying. If it were $50, you'd be like, that's suspiciously cheap. What's going on here? Or for $100... That's not too much for a flight controller ESC, but I'm gonna be annoyed if I have to make a lot of compromises. Yeah, okay. Ignacio Paz, thank you for $2, wants to know, would I get a new jumper T16 or a used X9D? Is it an X9D special edition with the Hall effect gimbals? I'd probably get the new jumper. Blades FPV in the Discord wants to know, I watched your video with Vanover talking about rates. Me and Alex Vanover did a little sit down where we talked about rates. It's on the Rotor Riot channel. It came out today. And I talked about lowering my rates. I used to fly at between 11 and 1200 degrees per second as my max rate. And now I'm flying at closer to I think it's 925 degrees per second. Some people in the comments of that video were annoyed that we only talked about max rate. We didn't talk at all about S rate and expo. And the reason we did that is, listen, here's how the video came about. Alex Vanover and I were talking, and we both realized that we both think that a lot of people fly rates that are too fast for them to control. Alex and I have worked at quad camps, and we just, we help people a lot. And a lot of times when I meet somebody, the first thing I'll do is I'll turn their rates down and they'll immediately become a better pilot. And so that was the premise for the video. It was Alex and I just wanted to shout at the camera for a while, turn your rates down, you dorks. But that wouldn't have made a very good video. So we broke it down and we talked about how do you know when you should lower your rates? What rates do you fly at? And at the end of the video, people were like, well, you didn't talk at all about S rates and expo. And it's like, well, the video wasn't actually like supposed to be a tutorial about rates. It was supposed to be us saying, turn your rates down. Whatever your S rate and your expo is, turn it down. Just turn it down by 200 degrees per second. Well, that's why I'm only talking about max rates. That's all we were talking about. We'll make another video showing how to set up expo and S rates, but what even is expo? Asks 661FPV. 661FPV, expo gives you more precision at the center of your stick in exchange for less precision at the full stick deflection. Whereas if you have a linear stick curve, every degree of stick deflection is the same amount of quadcopter rotation. By adding expo, you get more control, and let's call it a soft center of the stick. You get more control at the center of the stick. Well, you're joking, but somebody needed to know the answer. Terminal LCPL wants to know, now that I've got the X-Class flying pretty solid, have I got any plans for it? Well, I wouldn't say I've got it flying solid yet. I still need to troubleshoot the arm dip. And if you look over in the Facebook group, Black Box Log Analysis Facebook group, they've looked at some of my logs and have some suggestions for what I could be doing to make it fly even better. So I wouldn't say that it's flying pretty solid, but I got to tell you, I need to find the limits before I actually try to like freestyle it. I dream of taking this giant beast and like actually freestyling it. But the more I fly it, the more I'm like, well, from the GoPro's perspective, it doesn't look that different. So I do think that the beast is going to be more of like a showpiece that you bring out to quad camps or other events, show it off, fly it around, impress people. If I actually just want to go fly freestyle, I'm not sure there's any point in flying something like that. So Invert FPV, there should be a Rotor Riot video where you try to fly with the highest rates possible. 2,000 degrees per second is the highest rate, and if you had enough expo, you probably could do it. But if you had linear, forget it. Forget it. Camilo Henao wants to know about RSSI scale in Betaflight. In some places, they claim you need to set the RSSI scale at 200, and others they don't. Camilo, if you are using F-port, if you have the F-port firmware on your receiver using the F-port protocol, then F-port carries RSSI. You don't need to do anything else with telemetry or aux channels. If you're using F-port, the flight controller knows your RSSI. If you're doing that, then you need to set RSSI scale to 200 in Betaflight. If you're using the other way that you normally do it with the aux channel and the RSSI channel and SmartPort telemetry, you do not need to do any RSSI scale equals 200. Let's see here. Any plans on an update for the JBFC? Asked Archmage AU. Archmage, we are working on a new updated version of the JBFC, both an F4 and an F7 version. We gave the green light on the prototypes just this week. We ordered 10 prototypes. So we got like 2 prototypes, and we tested them just to make sure that like basically everything worked. And once we had the approval on that, we're going to order like 10 prototypes, and we're going to hand those out to, don't volunteer. We're going to hand those out to some test pilots, and they're going to test them for us, and we'll do a little wider. We're getting closer to actually being able to have those on order, but no specific time frame yet. That's an update, though. Chamber wants to know why your RSSI bar is disappearing in flight and coming back after a minute with rapid fire. Chamber, when rapid fire loses its sync to the sync pulses in your video feed, the RSSI bar disappears. So that's indicating that it's losing sync with the camera. If it's doing that, I would be very concerned that it was about to start screen smearing and just kick you off. So I would be very careful. It's the camera, the flight controller, the VTX, they can all affect this. But basically, when you fly that quad, I would suggest switching from rapid fire mode 1 to rapid fire mode 2. And that will you'll lose the RSSI bar because it doesn't draw the RSSI in mode 2, but that'll help give you a more solid signal. Or you could just ignore it. Cross your fingers. They Call Me Tech wants to know what I think of the Xylo stack or any of the Xylo products. Xylo is GetFPV's budget house brand. Lumineer is GetFPV's high-end house brand. Xylo typically offers good value. It's inexpensive stuff. Sometimes Xylo stuff is just like rebranded Racer Star stuff. Like the Xylo, no, that was the Lumineer. I apologize. The Racer Star Alpha flight controller, Lumineer sold that for a long time under there. They just put their sticker on it as far as I know. But I'm not mad about that, because if you buy a Racer Star flight controller from GetFPV and then it lights on fire, they'll be like, hey, sorry, and they'll give you another one, which you're not going to get from Racer Star or Banggood probably, maybe. So I'm a big fan of the Xylo, and now with like this Xylo Stax flight controller and ESC, they're coming up on Xylo battery line. They have a budget battery line. That's fantastic. I'm a big fan of it. I'm mostly a big fan of it because it's GetFPV, and GetFPV is a really solid vendor. John B. wants to know, what is Rapid Fire Mode 1 and 2? I've been using Legacy. So, John, here's the deal. Rapid Fire Mode 1 is the full Rapid Fire Unicorn magic. Sync, reconstruction, signal combining, whatever else they do. Rapid Fire Mode 1 is the full Monty. That's what you want. That's what you paid for. Some cameras don't put out a consistent enough signal, and Rapid Fire Mode 1 gets confused. And when that happens, your picture just starts to smear and roll sideways. And then you cuss Rapid Fire, and you're like, damn it, Rapid Fire, you screwed me for the last time. And Immersion RC says, it's not our fault these cameras are defective. And everyone else says, you crashed my quad, you piece of... And Immersion RC says, okay, fine. So they give you Rapid Fire Mode 2, in which some of the performance is reduced, but also there's a much lower chance of ever getting the smearing and stuff. Legacy Mode is just traditional diversity. The Rapid Fire should still give better performance than most other modules in Legacy Mode, because the Rapid Fire, it's designed to be very sensitive in general. But if you're running in Legacy Mode, you want to be running in Mode 1 if you at all possibly can. But here's the thing. The first time you get a new quad, like you get your new Mobula 7 home, the first time you fly it, be careful. Because that could be the one that Rapid Fire goes, I don't like this camera. And then it takes a dump on you. Once you know you can trust Mode 1 with a given quad, or then you fly at Mode 1 and it's no problem. But the first time you fly a new camera, a new VTX, or a new flight controller, those are the three things that can affect it. The first time you do that, don't just go all out, send it. Because 30 seconds into your flight, Rapid Fire could screw you over. Okay. I talk about this. I love Rapid Fire. It's the best, in my opinion. I don't want anything else in my goggles. The fact that 99% of the time it's so much better than everything else, every so often it screws me, and I cuss at it. But overall, I still love it. And I'm just like, oh, you, get out of here. Pav Alvarez is a troublemaker and wants to ask me a question about TBS Unify. What do you mean the TBS Pro 32 HV 1 watt official, 2 watts actual? What do you mean by that, Pav Alvarez? Do you mean it's rated for 1 watt, but really it makes 2 watts? I mean, it can't make over a watt and be sold in the US. That would be a problem. Andrew Mitchell says, what's the difference between using hex screws instead of regular Phillips head? Why does FPV always use hex screws? Because hex screws are better. Everything should use hex screws. Phillips heads are awful. Robertson drive is okay. Thank you, Canadians. Phillips heads are awful. Hex, I wish everything... You know, you Europeans got a few things right, and hex screws are one of them. There's almost no application where a Phillips head is better than a hex driver. They are much less likely to strip. Okay, here's the problem. Okay. Here's the problem with hex. You have to have the right size driver. Like, if I have 3 Phillips head screwdrivers, I can drive any Phillips head screw I want. Okay, I'll give you that. Whereas I'm like, where's my 2mm drive? Shit. Okay, fine, I'll give you that. But yeah, hex drivers. The thing is, all the screws on a quad are the same M2 or M3. So as long as you have 2 drivers, you're good to go, and they're way better. They don't strip as easily. They're fantastic. Monkey FPV, there's another person in the Discord asking the same quote. It's you. Never mind. Why does the Revolt OSD only get TX1 from Crossfire, no RX? I don't know about that one. You'd have to ask the Flight 1 guys. That's a little too deep for me to know off the top of my head. Maybe somebody in the chat knows. We got a super chat here from Bobcat FPV. Bobcat, why are you not showing up in the super chat window, though? Am I missing? Oh, no, okay. Bobcat FPV once says, love your content. Thank you. You know, it's so nice to hear. Building a 3-inch with a GoPro. That's a mistake. Tips for tuning filters and PIDs in this size range. Don't build a 3. You guys, can a 3-inch... okay, I'm sorry. A 3-inch can carry a GoPro if all you want to do is, like, slow cruising. Tell me I'm wrong about this. Guys who are much more into micros than me. Can a 3-inch carry a GoPro? No. No, right? I'm not crazy, am I? Okay. Maybe a session. Maybe. It's not going to rip. Thank you, Alex. Tips for tuning. What I would suggest you do... Hang on. Is... Betaflight community presets. Betaflight has a page on their wiki with community presets, and they have suggested PIDs for various sizes. So, like, here's one 2 or 3 inch quad with 11xxx to 12xx motors. This might be a place to start. 3-inch quad with 14 to 15xx motors. This might be a place to start, but I have to tell you, if you're running a GoPro on a 3-inch, you're going to be so much heavier than everybody else who's running that other people's 3-inch tunes may not work great for you. You're probably going to need higher P gain to get any movement at all, maybe higher I gain to stiffen it up. Your filters are probably going to be okay because the GoPro is going to help damp the vibration somewhat. So the default filters may actually be a little conservative, but here's the thing. You're going to be flying so freaking slow with that freaking heavy GoPro on that 3-inch that your tune isn't going to matter. Because, bounce back on flips and rolls? You're not doing any flips and rolls. What are you talking about? That's what I would say. Thank you for your $10 donation, Bobcat FPV. I hope that was helpful. Rick says, I'm not sure where the 1 watt VTX limit comes from. Rick, that's a good question. I think... I should do my research, but Rick, instead I'm just going to talk off the cuff. If I remember right, there's a 1 watt limit for telecommand in the FCC regulations. Many people think that telecommand means the controller talking to the receiver, and it does. When the FCC fined GetFPV, one of the things they complained about was selling video transmitters over 1 watt. And in a footnote, they referenced the telecommand section of the regulations. And I wish I had this in front of me because I know that's accurate because I've talked about this other times. It was the first time the FCC had ever indicated that they considered FPV video to be telecommand. Until then, everybody knew that your transmitter was telecommand. That's obvious. But everybody kind of assumed that the video was not telecommand. The FCC in their filing against GetFPV indicated that they consider it to be telecommand, and that means there's a 1 watt limit. If you want to argue that, you're going to need to take the FCC to court. But that's their interpretation of the regulations. Zorro. Oh, of course it's Zorro. Of course. This is a video from Zorro FPV. If you don't know who he is, just shut up. Get out of here. Zorro FPV. And a GoPro Hero 7 on a 3-inch quad?
The Quadcopter Review is brought to you by Zorro. Or Zorro is brought to you by the Quadcopter Review.
Okay, but does it fly? Okay, here we go. No, that's not a quadcopter. Come on. No, stop talking. Oh my God, stop vlogging. Just show me what I want. Stop vlogging. Oh my God, are we flying? Okay, here we go.
All right.
Oh, that's...
Oh, dude, fine.
Not bad.
Wow.
Pretty good, actually. Nope.
Wow, it flew. Here.
Monster, along with my partner who's...
No. No copyright strikes. No copyright strikes. Okay, I mean, it's flying. Okay, you got me. You need ducts. Camilo says you need ducts for a 3-inch GoPro. Did Zorro have ducts? Okay. Rick says, I'm a ham and ATV is the same thing and not limited, so I don't get it. I don't get it either, Rick. But that's how it... The thing is, if you're anybody in the industry and you look at Get FPV getting a $1.8 million fine. Now, to be fair, a lot of what they got a fine for was not the over 1 watt. That was just one of the things. But if you're getting a fine basically for selling non-compliant VTXs, that's what they got fined for. Nobody, when that happened, everyone else in the United States absolutely crapped their pants and said, holy they are watching and I don't want to be next. And everybody just stopped selling any VTX that was even remotely. So the FCC says we think FPV video is telecommand and it's limited to 1 watt. Nobody wants to be the guy who says, no, it's not, and then gets a fine and has to take him to court. So in the United States, VTX is under 1 watt. That's just whatever the regulation actually is, nobody's going to sell it to you. Even, for goodness sake, even AKK, which doesn't even have a U.S. presence as far as I know, even they won't sell a over 1 watt into the U.S. because they're just like, nope. There you go. Yeah, Rick, what I suggest you do is find the FCC's filing against Get FPV and search it for the word telecommand. Oh my God, I want to do it now. Hang on. I'm going to do it. Wait. FCC penalizes Get FPV. Can I find the PDF? Is this it? Oh, see, I was like, I'm not going to do this on the live stream. It's going to take me like 5 seconds to find it. See right here, filing, blah, 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 in the matter of Lumineer, aka FPV manuals. So let's search for telecommand. No, damn it. It's in, how many pages is this? It's only 10 pages. It's in one of the footnotes, I swear. Nope. Here we go. Bingo. Right here. Bingo. This is it. Footnote 15. Limiting transmit power to 1 watt. Where's footnote 15 up here in the text? Here it is. Additionally, some of the AV transmitters exceeded the authorized power limit for amateur operation of model craft. Okay, so here the FCC says Get FPV is in trouble because they sold things exceeding the power limit for operation of model craft. Then they reference 97215C, which limits transmit power to 1 watt. What is 97215C? That's the telecommand. That's the telecommand. I want to go to 97215C. The transmitter power must not exceed 1 watt. Telecommand of model craft. Ergo, the FCC considers FPV video to be telecommand and limited to 1 watt. Well, Rick says in the Discord, yeah, that's wrong, for sure. Okay, Rick. Congratulations. You and I both think it's wrong. The FCC thinks it's right. They can levy a $1.8 million fine. That's just it. No one's going to fight them on this. Every single vendor just said, fine, we don't care. 1 watt, fine. No one cares enough to fight them on it. Anyway. Is Cricket here? Is Cricket in the chat? 570RC, you are mixing up the regulations for digital spread spectrum. You're talking about max output of 1 watt, 30 dBm. That's the digital spread spectrum regulations, I believe. The ham, the Part 90, we're operating under Part 97, not Part 15. So, 180K. No, sir, Rick. I'm pretty sure it was 1.8 million. I think. I'm pretty sure it was 1.8 million. Maybe it was 180K. No, they proposed a $2.8 million fine. Oh, my bad. My bad, Rick. Rick, I apologize. I'm spreading lies. I apologize. 180K. I sincerely apologize for getting that wrong. 180K. Well, it's still a lot of freaking money. Yeah. That's a lot of... No, terminal LCPL. You need a ham radio license to broadcast over 1 watt. That is incorrect. I apologize for being so blunt about it. You need a ham radio license in the United States to use every single analog transmitter, regardless of its output power, because none of them are Part 15 certified. In order to be unlicensed, the radio has to be Part 15 certified. Even though, theoretically, some of our VTXs might pass Part 15 certification, none of them actually have passed Part 15 certification. Therefore, you are supposed to have a ham radio license in the U.S. regardless of the out. People say if as long as you're under 25 milliwatts, you're fine. Or if you have your ham, you can go over 1 watt. None of that is true. You're supposed to have the ham, period. And the real truth is that none of these VTXs would ever pass Part 15 certification. There are all kinds of restrictions that in order to pass Part 15, it's really unlikely that they would. It maybe, but the fact is that they haven't, and therefore you must be licensed. And here's how you know they haven't. The output power limit for a Part 15 analog device is like 0.4 milliwatts. So none of these VTXs could possibly ever be Part 15 certified. Therefore, you have to have a ham license to legally use them. Many of us are using them and don't have a ham license. I happen to have one, but if you're using them and you don't have a ham license, you are breaking the law in the United States. Okay. Yeah, Alex Goresh, if you are in the U.S. and you are using an analog 5 gigahertz video transmitter and you don't have a ham license, you are breaking the law. Period. What's my ham handle? KM40TN. Why do I remember that? Tumbleweed 30 wants to know about the Best Buy warranty from GoPro. If you get the Best Buy warranty with it and you break it after 6 months, do you have to pay the full 2-year warranty again? Is it a better idea to get the 1-year warranty? Good question, Tumbleweed. So here's how the GoPro warrant the Best Buy warranty works. Since this is the U.S. stream and all the Europeans have gone to bed, we can talk about this. The Europeans are all jealous. When you bring back your GoPro for a warranty replacement, Best Buy will look at it and decide whether GoPro is going to replace it or whether Best Buy is going to replace it. I brought back a GoPro once and it had a speck of dust on the sensor. Best Buy said that's a GoPro warranty issue. If you bring it back and you've just smashed the shit out of it in a crash, that's a Best Buy warranty issue. If the damages are covered under GoPro's warranty, then Best Buy gives you back the money for the camera and Best Buy refunds you on the warranty because GoPro's replacing the camera, so they're like, well, this warranty is just canceled. If the damage to the camera is such that Best Buy is replacing it, then you do not get your money back for the warranty. You bought the warranty, you used the warranty, that's what you paid for. So you walk in with a GoPro that's been crushed under a car, Best Buy gives you $300 back for the GoPro, and your warranty is now done. You buy another camera for $300 and you buy another warranty for $40 or $60, and now that new camera has a warranty, the same thing starts over. But the question is, should you get the 1 year or the 2 year warranty? You should probably get the 1 year warranty, because the 1 year warranty is cheaper and you're probably going to break your camera in a year. If you buy the 4 year warranty and you break the camera in 6 months, you do not get that money back. You're just done. It's gone. So the real question is, if you buy the 1 year warranty and then it's almost up, can you renew it? Can you re-up it? I don't know the answer to that. So, do you need the box and cables and whatnot? Katiz, if you bring the camera back without the accessories, they will charge you for them. And they charge you a ridiculous amount of money. Like if you don't bring back the USB cable and the battery for a GoPro 7, they'll charge you like $35. It's ridiculous. So definitely need to bring back all the accessories. Rick Munn, the GoPro policy is a warranty. The Best Buy policy is insurance. See the difference? If you use the GoPro warranty, Best Buy refunds you for the insurance. Okay? But if you use the insurance, you don't get a refund on the insurance. That's not how insurance works. Yeah, Ciati FPV says, my Best Buy just opened the replacement box and used the accessories from that. Ciati, I was exchanging a Hero 7 and I didn't have any of the accessories with me, and they were like, we're going to charge you $35 for this. And I was like, oh. I was like, can I not just get one and open it and give you that? And they're like, no. They made me go home and I could have just paid $35, but I didn't want to. Young Hemingway says, I don't do insurance. Listen, Young Hemingway, this is not like, you can't make me have insurance to drive on your roads, man. This is like, you get a free camera. If you're flying FPV and you're flying a GoPro and you live in the US and you're not buying the Best Buy insurance, you're wasting money. Okay. Alrighty. Yep, Young Hemingway doesn't buy insurance. I mean, the camera insurance is the GoPro Best Buy insurance is it's such a ripoff for Best Buy. I just assume that they have to give us, they can't say legally, I'm guessing, they can't say, no, you're cut off. Like there's some law or something that says if you sell insurance, you have to sell insurance equally to everybody. And they just make so much freaking money selling useless insurance to mom and dad who bought a GoPro that's going to live in a drawer that they can just afford to give us all free cameras. That's my theory. Because when you buy a GoPro as an FPV pilot, 100% chance you're going to destroy it. So like the insurance is just free money. Yeah, but the Young Hemingway, the racket, it goes the other way with the Best Buy policy. Think about it, Young Hemingway. The insurance, you're guaranteed to break the object. That's the key. You will break the GoPro by crashing your quad. Therefore, the insurance is free money. You're winning this deal. It's the one time in life you get a great deal. Rick, they get stuff wrong. Part 97 is easy to understand, but Rick, what is telecommand define telecommand under Part 97, Rick? We're going back to this question. Telecommand is defined as an amateur station transmitting signals to control a model craft. That's telecommand. What's an amateur station? A station in the amateur radio service consisting of the apparatus necessary for carrying on radio communications. So let me ask you this, Rick. I mean, just between you and me. I mean, I'm not really trying to argue with you, but I'm just saying it's not preposterous. Is your quadcopter with a VTX on it an amateur station? That sounds like it to me. It consists of the apparatus necessary for carrying on radio communications. So the VTX is an amateur station. Okay. Is it transmitting signals to control a model craft? That's the question. Nobody would dispute that the controller is transmitting signals to control. That's its name, controller. But the question is the VTX signal used to control the craft? Let me ask you this, Rick. I'm going to be the FCC lawyer, and you're gonna be on the stand. Can you control the plane without that, sir? Maybe, if you're flying line of sight. Yeah. So, I mean, here's my point. My point is, it's not preposterous. It's not obviously wrong, in my opinion. It's not obviously wrong. And the FCC says it, and they can fine you $180,000 if you don't like it. So, I mean, if you're flying beyond line of sight, then there's no question that you have to have the FPV link to control the craft. But you're not supposed to be flying beyond line of sight either. So, alrighty, guys. Well, that's going to do it. That's going to do it for this one. We've gone a little long, but I wanted to go a little bit long just to get a few more questions in since we had our special guest at the beginning of the live stream. If you just came in at the beginning of the live stream, we had Rick Rubinstein with us from SRA Solder talking about soldering iron tip maintenance and just anything soldering related. So definitely go back and check the DVR if you want to. This is going to be up on the channel as DVR in a few hours or maybe tomorrow. John B., my call sign is KM40TN. KM40TN. That's going to do it, though. That's going to do it. Sorry, I'm reading about this 1 watt argument. That's going to do it for this live stream. Thank you guys so much. I will be back Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. So I do these live streams Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll be here taking your questions, answering your questions, helping you out, and regular videos coming the rest of the week. What's coming this week? The next video is coming out tomorrow is me flying 4S, 5S, and 6S on 2150 kV motors, and this video blew my freaking mind. I did not expect the result I got from this video. So that's going to be out tomorrow. I got some new FreeSky Access radios in the mail that I need to be testing, reviewing, making videos, talking about FreeSky Access, and mostly showing how to update the firmware on these FreeSky Access radios to get your functionality back the way you want it. Yeah. And I painted my goggles. I don't know if you saw on my Instagram, but I painted my goggles. Let's take a look over here for those of you who are how do I do that? There we go. This is not actually the right color. I have to say, this looks way more like hot pink than it actually is. It's really more like a deep, deep purple. It's a deep purple. It is not hot pink. Willie wants one. Willie, see, hot pink is Willie's color. I would never do that. But I painted my goggles. I got some videos about painting these goggles, so we'll be making that. Anyway, that's what's going on this week. Thank you guys so much for coming out. That's going to do it for this live stream. I will see you next time. Happy flying, everybody.